Good morning, Mr. Daniels.
Good morning, Maya.
Good morning,
Good morning, everybody else.
What's up, Rob?
Good morning.
Hey, wait, I said that.
I said that upstairs.
Today we are in lesson 3 of Ezekiel. And it is very different than last week. This week it is hope.
Woo-hoo.
Okay.
Finally,
I know. Last week was a real downer. This week is a real upper. Okay. This week and next week are both uppers. Alright. I would like Lisa to open us in prayer today.
Lord, thank you for today, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I just ask that you please help us to pay attention, help us to learn a lot, and just help us to have a safe drive home today. I ask these things in your holy name.
Amen.
Let's go, Leah. I appreciate your
Leah's like, I'm ready.
leaving me hanging. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, we are in the third lesson. Like I said, very much contrasted to last week's judgment. This week is hope. So today we will see God's renewal power in the valley of dry bones. Hear the word of the Lord. Right? Okay. We also see his sovereignty over nations and a big epic battle against this personification of unholiness named Gog. And Gog. Yeah, God versus Gog.
Wrong.
No.
Wait, they play Grog too?
And then next week, Miss Lorene will walk you guys through the end of the book. When Ezekiel gets a glimpse into the future and sees how God will restore all of creation and finally dwell with his people. This week and next week are very Revelation 19 through 22 coded. Okay, so if you read those chapters and you read the Ezekiel chapters, you will see a lot of parallels. Okay, I will point out some, and I'm going to encourage Miss Lorraine to point out some. And I encourage all of you to point out some. Okay? If that means skimming through Revelation 19 through 22 at some point, I think that would be worth it. That's kind of bonus homework, I guess, for your own benefit and for the benefit of others around you, that you can point that out and make some connections for each other. Okay? Revelation 19 through 22. Write it down. Read it. Skim through it at least. Okay. Today, though, we are specifically in Ezekiel 34 through 39. Does that sound right? Does that sound familiar? Yeah? How'd the reading
I'm
go?
going to be the only one doing this because it was kind of short.
Oh, it's okay, bro. Me too.
Yeah, it was pretty short, and then the highlights were even shorter.
I
So
did
whatever.
2.5 chapters, I think.
Okay.
Nice.
I think me too. I give up.
Cool. All right. I'm seeing mostly thumbs, medium, and high. Cool. Love it. All right. Let's get into it. Ezekiel 34 through 39. Here we have the same questions. These should be very familiar. You should have these written down already somewhere so that you can be looking at that as you read. So just a quick refresher, and for those of you who aren't reading the board, what is God revealing about himself? What is the condition of the people? What picture, symbol, or action stands out? What direction is the passage moving on a scale from judgment to restoration? And how does this move toward God dwelling with his people? Okay? Did we have those questions in mind as we were reading? At least, like, subconsciously in the back of your minds, maybe? Okay. Okay. Let's look at the first section, which is chapter 34 through 37, Hope for Israel. So last week we saw judgment against Israel and judgment against the nations. This week we get the flip side of that. We get hope for Israel and hope for the nations. Okay? So 34 through 37. Okay? Alright. Who wants to start us off? What do we see in 34?
Still getting there.
Okay, still getting there?
I know something I was reading on the second part of verse 16. It says, I will strengthen the weak, and the fat of the strong I will destroy. There's a footnote, it says the complete opposite. It says, I will watch over, not that he will destroy.
Interesting.
So I don't understand.
So that, in my Bible, I have a similar footnote, and it has that in one translation, it is I will watch over, and that's in the translation where they took from, so this was written in Hebrew, translated into Greek, translated into Latin. And in that translation of a translation, for whatever reason, it says, I will watch over instead of I will destroy. And so that would be like a translation
Error?
error?
Because if it's
Difference.
the only one that says that, then that one was wrong.
Yeah, I think so. So that would be somehow from Hebrew to Greek to Latin. You know, playing the game telephone, where like I
Yeah.
whisper a message to Shannon and it goes around the room and then it gets back to me and it's completely different. That happens when you go from one language to another, to another, to another, to another, to another. Right? Even just with one language in between the original and what you're going to, it can still get pretty much flipped upside down. Okay? So, does your note say in the Vulgate, you have that word?
Yeah,
Yeah. So Vulgate is that Latin translation.
okay.
Anytime you see that, know that that's like what they were reading in medieval times when they only had the Bible in Latin. That's what it was. It was a translation of a translation. Okay? And not 100% accurate there. Again, that's the translation being inaccurate, not the Word of God. Human error.
Of course. We make mistakes, really?
Every now and again.
Yeah.
Once or twice. Here and then. Okay. That's a good observation. Okay?
I think this is kind of before Jesus gets into the picture and really calls himself the Good Shepherd. This is kind of foreshadowing that and saying, like, you did not take good care of my people, so I'm going to be the best shepherd and take good care of my people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
It
I
kind of
think-
calls back to Psalm 23 as well.
Yeah.
And like, you know, God says he's the shepherd. David says God is the shepherd. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd.
Mhm.
That's the good shepherd.
Number one.
Absolutely. Like, you human leaders, not good, right? We've seen that before multiple times in these prophecies. The human leaders are the problem. But God says, despite your failings, I will take over as the good shepherd, the one who can lead properly. And so like it's a little bit of judgment against Israel, but it's also the hope that there is a good shepherd that is going to take over. Okay? So that answers what God is revealing about himself. Right? He is the shepherd that will lead his people. And the condition of the people, they're sheep. They're dumb sheep who have been led astray by their dumb shepherds.
Correction, we are dumb sheep.
We, yes. Sometimes we speak specifically about the people of Israel, sometimes they're a representation of all of us.
They are.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What else do we see in chapter 34?
God promises to give them peace
Mhm.
when he restores them.
Yeah, there's a messianic prophecy in here. In verse 24, I, the Lord, will be their God, and my servant David shall be prince among them. I am the Lord, I have spoken.
I was confused with that.
David's dead by this time.
Yeah.
So,
I was like,
what are we talking about here? Like he's been dead for a few hundred years by this point. So is David going to come back to life and be prince over the people?
My,
No? Then what's that saying?
Well, isn't Jesus in the line of David?
yeah.
Yeah. David is kind of a placeholder representation of the Messiah, right? David was kind of an early prototype of a Messiah. That's a way to think of it.
Trial and error.
Trial and error? Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
All the candy plays got trial and
It's-
error.
I like to think of it as a prototype. Okay.
But the prototype aired.
The prototype aired. Yeah. The creator that made it didn't, but the prototype. There you go. And it was all pointing towards the perfect Messiah. And so, yeah, here where it says, my servant David shall be prince among them, that would be Jesus. The Messiah, like the ultimate David. Right? David was an early draft. Jesus is what the end result is.
final copy.
The final copy. Yep.
Revised and edited.
Revised and edited, fit for public consumption. FDA approved. Yeah. All right. And then at the end of the chapter, the covenant of peace is restored. So the people broke the covenant. God is bringing it back. Okay. Let's get into 35 and 36. They kind of pair together in the sense that they contrast each other. Okay.
What's to do with 35? Prophecy against Mount Seir?
Yeah.
Like, what is Mount Seir?
What is
I feel like
Mount
that's
Seir?
missing context.
Does anybody know what Mount Seir is?
That represents Edom,
Yeah. What's Edom?
the nation that came from Esau.
Mm-hmm.
So basically like Israel's enemies.
Yeah.
Because
Like ancient enemies. Let's.
very, very old.
Okay. If you have a map in the back of your Bible, you can look at the map.
Edom's the
Or you can
hairy
look at
dude, right?
Yeah. Hairy red guy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So.
I don't have a map.
What's that?
Wait, which one is it?
A map.
There might have been one of them.
The one in my Bible is titled Israel under Saul, David, and Solomon. So you want like full Israel map.
I hate the way the paper feels on the maps.
That's so right.
With my fingernails.
We need like big maps in here.
Yeah.
Yes, we should, right?
Okay. So, oh, upside down. Here we go. Please hold. Okay.
You saw
Jerusalem.
nothing. You have possible to know.
Jerusalem is right here.
Snail.
Okay. Jerusalem's right here. Everybody who has a map, find Jerusalem or Judah, depending on which map you're looking at. Okay. Edom is down and to the right, to the east,
I thought it was gonna be like you can't read it.
right here.
It's quite clear.
Yeah,
It's gonna be like
it's
fine
probably a big word. Like it's a region, okay, not just like a little tiny village.
Right there.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right. South of Moab, before you get to the Arabian desert. Okay, so that is the land of Edom, and like Lucy said, they are the descendants of Esau. Who was Esau?
It's Jacob's brother.
Yeah,
Twin brother.
Jacob's twin brother. What's significant about that story of Jacob and Esau?
Jacob stole the birthright.
Yeah.
Well,
He didn't
technically,
steal it.
Esau
Esau traded.
He
Traded
traded for a bad price.
He unfairly traded.
Unfairly traded and then later tricked out of the inheritance. So like,
Technically, a birthright is.
a good way to say it is that he stole everything from Esau.
Not really.
Cheated everything would probably be better than stole. Right? Okay. Point is, Esau was supposed to get everything, but because of Jacob's trickery, Jacob got everything and Esau didn't. Okay? Did that make for a good relationship between the brothers?
No.
No.
That's why Jacob.
But how did that story end?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Yeah. Like it's a happy story where there's conflict and then like a twist ending where Esau's like, it is what it is.
Whatever.
Whatever.
Running at each other in slow motion and giving a big old bear hug.
Yeah. But that was kind of isolated to just the brothers. The nations that came from them still held that tension between them.
If only Cain and Abel were the same way.
Yeah.
Right, but one of them was dead.
So, yeah. One of them was very much dead.
It was a little
Okay.
too late.
So this is like ancient, like cousin enemies, okay? And here, what is the prophecy against Mount Seir? And this mountain is kind of representing the whole area and people of Edom.
Desolate
Yeah,
piles of bodies.
yeah. It's not a good thing. It's uninhabited and uninhabitable. There will be no more people left in the area where there are currently people. Okay? Then what does 36 say? What is chapter 36 about?
The prophecy of the mountains of Israel.
So we have a prophecy against the mountains of Edom, and then what's the prophecy to the mountains of Israel? What's it saying?
They will be restored and people will live on there and stuff.
Yeah, it's the opposite. It's saying, like, for all the desolation of Edom, there will be restoration in Israel. In the place where, like, right now, it is desolate, there will be life again in the mountains of Israel. Okay? Mountains specifically, that doesn't matter. Right? The mountains aren't the important part. It's no people, yes people. Right? It's judgment against and hope for. Okay? Does that make sense? And it's just speaking to the mountains as the subject of the prophecy.
Fruit.
Right? But the mountains are not the important part. Alright? Anything else to add in those? The end of 36 kind of starts a new section that leads into 37, but it's still hope for Israel. Saying that, again, restoration is coming, and Yahweh will put his spirit in the people of Israel and give them a new heart and a new spirit. This is 36:26. A new spirit I will put within you. I'll remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I'll put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes and be careful to obey my rules. You shall dwell in the land that I gave your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I will be your God. Right? Like that is also the main verse of Ezekiel, but I didn't want to give you like a paragraph. I wanted to give you a shorter summary of that.
That's also a callback. That very same phrase was in Jeremiah 32.
That's what I was talking
And
about.
earlier in Ezekiel
Yeah.
11,
Yeah.
it's stated again.
Yeah.
Well, it was
The third time.
What's significant about repeating?
It's stuck in your head.
Stuck in your brain. Yeah. It's emphasizing like this is going to happen and it is going to be very significant. I'm telling 2 different prophets to tell you guys this, and this one is saying it multiple times. It's important and it is going to happen and it will change your lives. Yeah. And then that bleeds right into a very like eye-opening, powerful object lesson, I guess. Picture, symbol, or action that stands out in chapter 37. And what happens in chapter 37 that is so significant?
Rattle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A bunch of bones come alive
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
turn into actual people.
Someone tell me what happens. Someone other than Lucy.
The Lord raises like an army of dead people.
Mm-hmm.
I think the funny part of that is he asked Ezekiel, he's like, hey, you think I could do this? And he's like, it's up to you. You can do if you want to do it, go for it.
Do what you want, guys. Yeah.
Oh Lord God, you know.
You know what to do.
Can these bones live?
I don't know.
Why are you asking me? Guys? You're the smart one. Yeah. And then what does God say? Verse 4.
The prophesies over these bones and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord.
Yeah. So God doesn't just go and then they're alive. He says, you, prophet, speak to the bones and tell them my words. And then Ezekiel prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied there was a sound, and behold, a rattling, and the bones came together, bone to bone, and I looked, and behold, there were sinews on them, and flesh had come upon them, and skin had covered them. So like, these bones all shake, and then like the arm bone's connected to the shoulder bone's connected to the whatever other bones, and they like become skeletons, and then there's like tendons, and then muscles, and then skin, and then all of a sudden there's this whole army of formerly dead people who are now alive. They are not they are not zombies, they're not like rotten flesh, they are living people. Okay, they are not the undead, they are the resurrected. Okay? And it shows God's power over death, but it is a symbol. What is it a symbol for?
Oh,
Wasn't it when Jesus rose the dead people from the tombs rose?
That did happen, but that's not what this is a symbol for
Oh.
necessarily.
A new,
Okay?
new spirit,
Yeah.
new heart of flesh.
Yeah, like I said, it bleeds.
No heart at all.
It bleeds straight in from, I will put my spirit within them and they will have a heart of flesh, straight into this, where these bones, this is verse 11 of chapter 37. These bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they say, our bones are dried up and our hope is lost. We are indeed cut off. Therefore prophesy and say to them, thus says the Lord God, behold, I will open your graves and raise you from your graves, O my people, and I will bring you into the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am the Lord, when I open your graves and raise you from your graves, O my people. And I will put my spirit within you, and you shall live, and I will place you in your own land. Then you shall know that I am the Lord. I have spoken, and I will do it, declares the Lord. And then he goes on and like re-emphasizes that Yahweh will be their God and they will be his people. Right? So the Valley of Dry Bones, the point isn't that now there's an army of formerly dead people. The point is God will bring life into his people. Okay? And even when he's saying, I will open your graves and raise you from your graves, I don't think he's speaking literally there. I think he's saying, you are like dead people. You have no purpose. You're lost. I will give you purpose and give you life again. Could he be speaking literally, that he will literally raise them from their literal graves? Sure.
Maybe.
He just raised an army, but I think the more important thing is he will give them purpose and life, and his spirit will be in them, in us. Yeah.
What happened to them after they got raised from the dead?
What happened to the army of formerly dead?
Just
people?
Did they
like,
get to keep on living, or did they just like kind of die again? So
Did they find clothes?
Lydia's just freaked out by an army of naked people. is fair. That would be really. Okay, so here's the thing.
Here comes the army.
They're walking down the street, oh my goodness gracious.
That were armies that.
Okay. Bring it back in. Here's the thing. At the beginning of this chapter, the hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me out in the spirit of the Lord and set me down in the middle of a valley. And it was full of bones. It could have just been a vision. Because we also saw, was that back in chapter 8, I want to say? When he had his multi-chapter vision of the Spirit of God leaving the temple?
Yeah.
Where he was just like doing his thing, and then suddenly the Spirit of the Lord yoinked him out of wherever he was. I'm pretty sure it says grabbed him by the hair and like, carried him off over from Babylon to Jerusalem, showed him the temple, showed him things, a vision, not things that were literally happening, and then like yeeted him back into his place, right? And then it's very similar language here, where the Spirit of the Lord was upon him and brought him out in the Spirit to a valley. Could that mean that he was physically taken to a valley, a real actual place where there had been a battle and there's a bunch of dead people, and then these bunch of dead people literally, physically came back to life? Yeah, absolutely, God can do that. Does it fit with it didn't literally happen, but it was a vision from earlier in the book? Also, yes. Okay, so this is one of those, like, it could have just been a vision.
Oh, come on.
And then the army of naked, formerly dead people
Really excited.
didn't have to go and exist in the world. Because we also, to my knowledge, we don't hear of them ever again.
Yeah.
Which is, that would be kind of significant if,
It's like if a whole bunch of people just kind of
like, 100,000 people just wandered in, presumably naked, although they also could have. Dead people still have clothes, okay? They didn't die.
They were dry bones.
She knows.
They could have had that. Anyway, it would be pretty significant and worth writing down if 100,000 people wandered in from the wilderness into town, and they're like, hey, what year is it?
Like
We've been dead for like 100 years.
Where's my
Where are we?
That would be a little weird.
You'd write that down. That would be recorded in history. Okay. Right. And as far as I know, we don't have any documentation that a bunch of people showed up having been dead for multiple centuries.
Yeah.
Right. So probably it was a vision.
Okay.
It fits with the other things that Ezekiel has seen and the language of the other visions. Okay.
This is cool.
But like, yeah, it's still really cool.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
very powerful. Like, okay, I had a dream last night and I woke up and I was like, a little freak. It was just a dream. I guarantee you, I was not transported to another place and those events did not happen. But I still woke up and was like, shook from that, right?
That'd be funny, like, did that actually happen? Walked over the valley. Oh crap, it did happen.
Oh, you walked up the valley.
So, okay, bring it back. So the point of 37 is not the bodies that came back from the dead. Okay, that's not the point. That was the illustration that was used. Just like the point wasn't that Ezekiel laid on his side for a year playing with his model city. The point wasn't that he was eating food that was cooked over poop. The point wasn't that he cut his hair. Right? The point was, what does that symbolize? The point was, Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. There's going to be a siege where you have to eat food cooked in not usual ways. The people of Israel are going to be scattered just like this hair in the wind. Right? The point wasn't, hey, I got a haircut. Look at my model city. You know, follow me for more recipes. You know, the point wasn't there's now an army of formerly dead people. The point was, God will bring life back to his people. Just like he did here. Okay? That's the point. And sometimes we can lose the point because of how cool the illustration is. Right?
Yeah.
Last week in the sermon, the point wasn't look at the streamers in the aisle. The point was there's a timeline and Jesus is coming back and we don't know when. You remember that?
Mhm.
That was last week, right?
I will
Okay.
ghost.
But sometimes all we remember from the sermon is the illustration. And we're like, oh, what was that supposed to? I don't know, there's streamers, that's all I remember. Right?
The point of the illustration is to make you remember what
It should be, okay, there were streamers and Jesus is coming back and we don't know when. Right. That's the point of illustrations, is to give us something to remember that is connected to the actual point. Do you think Ezekiel ever forgot about this army coming back to life?
Probably not.
Probably not. Even if it was just a dream or a vision, he probably remembered that forever. That would kind of stick with you. For a lot of reasons.
Scarred for life.
I mean, it could be. Okay?
A lot of what he experienced in Storm for life.
A lot.
Yeah.
Some physically.
Physically did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, let's move on to chapter 38 and 39.
Gog.
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 Gog. Okay?
It's like a college grade god.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Who is Gog?
It's Grog's cousin. It's Grog's cousin.
A non-actual person, a personification of.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
That's what you said.
Because that's what I said. Come on.
She was listening though.
I was
That is-
confused
that is-
about it, and I was like, why are you talking about this like random person?
Yeah.
Why is he important?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it says
Okay.
on verse 3, it was like a chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that is.
Meshach and Tubal.
Yeah.
So those are ancient nations, we'll go with nations, that are mentioned like right around the Tower of Babel. And then like never mentioned again.
Yeah, I was like,
Okay.
I know Meshach sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's like you may have heard them. They're in like, you read all of the, you know, or it might be right before the Tower of Babel, where like the sons of Noah get off the ark and then this son becomes all of these nations, and this son becomes all of these nations, and this son becomes all of these nations. I think it's either in there or right after the Tower of Babel. And then like never mentioned again. Okay, so he's the chief of these like, at this point kind of legendary civilizations that are not good civilizations. And then he's allied with Persia, Cush, Put, Gomer, Gorma.
Whatever that is.
It mentions
Quite a few.
like 10 different nations that are all enemies of Israel and enemies of God. That this one king is allied with. And there's no historical information about a king named Gog from the land of Magog, which just means of Gog. Okay?
Gog.
Shannon from Shannontown.
Shannonville.
Shannonville? Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Get it right.
Like that's what he was named. He was named Gog from of Gog. Gog from Gogville. And yeah, there's from all historical accounts, that's not a real person. There's some debates that like, ooh, the name is similar to some other thing that's like, not really. If you stretch it quite a bit, it could be.
Og in the Bible.
That is
King Og.
Yeah. So this is as near as most scholars can tell, a personification of every nation that fights against God. Okay? That's the easiest way to explain this. And remember I said we were going to look into the end of Revelation. So let's open up to Revelation chapter 20. Chapter 20, verse 7. And when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison. That's unfortunate. And will come out to deceive the nations that are at the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. Their number is like the sand of the sea. Okay, so Gog. And here it's maybe separated Gog and of Gog. But the point is, all the nations in the four corners of the earth are called Gog and Magog. All the nations to fight against Yahweh are Gog and Magog. Okay. And then they marched up over the broad plain of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city. But fire came down from heaven and consumed them. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were already. And they will be tormented day and night forever and ever.
The end.
Amen. I mean, basically the end. That's the last time we hear of Satan. Or
Well, it says Hades
or
later
any
on.
enemies of God. Okay. Yeah, then after some judgment, death and Hades are also thrown in to the lake of fire to join the rest of the enemies.
Pretty
of
much
God.
Hades is actually real.
That's a different conversation, but
Hades is thrown into Hades.
it's the underworld or
Yeah.
yeah. Anytime you read Sheol or the pit or the grave,
Yeah.
it's also Hades. Same word.
Yeah.
Okay, basically death and where you put death.
The death of people.
Thrown into the lake of fire. Okay, so Gog and Magog appear there at the end. And what happens to Gog and Magog and Satan and the enemies of God?
They die.
They die. How?
Actually, no, they just suffer for eternity.
Well, it
Well,
says
this is worse.
It says in verse 9 there, they surround the beloved city, and then what happens?
Fire came down.
Fire came down from heaven and consumed them. That is death. They die.
Oh yeah.
And then Satan is yeeted into the lake of fire. And then judgment happens where all of these nations and people who were just deceived and consumed by fire are brought back for judgment. And then lake of fire, which is worse than consumed by fire from heaven. Because at least fire from heaven, you die. And then it's done.
You don't have to
Lake
suffer
of fire.
eternally.
You don't die. And it's never done. Okay? So, this personification of all the nations that fight against Yahweh. And this great army is gathered against the Lord and against his people. And the wrath of Yahweh consumes them in like 4 or 5 different ways. So like, here's a few different hypothetical scenarios of how God could get this done. And he's like, there's going to be an earthquake, and you're going to be crushed. There's going to be sword, and you're going to be like stabbed to death.
Yeah.
You know, traditional fighting, you're still going to lose. There's going to be pestilence, you're going to get sick and die. There's going to be rain and hail, you're going to drown, maybe, I don't know. You get trench foot from all the rain, you're going to get pierced in the noggin with a hailstone, I don't know, whatever. There's going to be fire, might be consumed by fire. There's going to be arrows. There's going to be wild beasts. There's going to be, right, the list goes on of like, basically, you're going to die.
No matter what.
I'll figure out how later. And apparently Yahweh sticks with fire, classic.
Good choice, sir.
Sticks with vintage. And so like I'm moving through 38 into 39.
Oh, we're back in Ezekiel.
Yeah, sorry. We're back in Ezekiel now. At one point it says that Israel will destroy Gog's weapons and just like burn the weapons so they'll be left unarmed. It says that Israel will bury the multitude of the dead from Gog's army. They'll like have a designated valley. I thought it was interesting, again, kind of contrasting the valley of dry bones, and then like there's going to be another burial valley, but this time for the enemies of God. And they're not coming back to life. It's like people will just drag corpses over here, and as you're walking along, if you see a corpse of a dead person, just put a marker there, and someone will come and get that corpse and drag it over to the corpse valley.
Trash truck will come through.
Yeah, the trash truck will come through.
Like
and
all the
just load
yellow
them up.
bags on the side of the road.
That is kind of what it says. And the promised land will be cleansed, and any living person from Gog's army will join the valley of the dead. And the land will have peace, and there will be no more enemies anymore. And then in 39:17, there's a section where Ezekiel is meant to speak to the birds and the beasts of the field, and says, assemble and come, gather from all around to the sacrificial feast that I am preparing for you. A great sacrificial feast on the mountains of Israel. And you shall eat flesh and drink blood. You shall eat the flesh of the mighty and drink the blood from the princes of the earth. That's cool.
Delicious. Minions is
Let's turn all the way back. Turn all the way back into Revelation again. Chapter 19 this time.
Oh, it's not so verse. Oh, what? Where?
Revelation chapter 19. Probably the same page that we were on. Alright? So in Ezekiel it was 39:17. In Revelation it is 19:17. And this is right after Jesus comes back. So this is actually a little before what we just read in chapter 20. And I say a little, I mean about 1,000 years before. And this is kind of the first defeat of the enemies of God. And then there's 1,000 years of peace and prosperity. And then Satan is released, and there's a second defeat of the enemies of God. And that one is the final one that we just
I don't
read.
even know why Satan tries. He knows all the ending.
I know. He's something. So, Revelation 19:17. So this is after Jesus comes back on a horse, and there's a sword coming out of his mouth. Literal or metaphorical? We'll find out. I like to think it means that he can speak and you die. And he does so, and there are dead people. And verse 17, then I saw an angel standing in the sun, and with a loud voice he called to all the birds that fly directly overhead, come, gather for the great supper of God, to eat the flesh of kings, the flesh of captains, the flesh of mighty men, the flesh of horses and their riders, the flesh of all men, both free and slave, both small and great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Horse meat.
Like basically the exact same thing that was said about the armies in Ezekiel is going to be said about the armies in Revelation. It's the same thing.
Supper time.
So like Ezekiel, and John are seeing the same thing and prophesying the same thing happening. Right? Surprise. The end is the same, even if it's separated by hundreds of years, the ending has not changed. Okay? The wording might be a little bit different, right? The amount that is revealed to one versus the other might be a little different. You know, that's why Gog and Magog show up after the 1,000 years, but over here it may be different. Point is, the ending's the same. Okay? Ezekiel and John saw the same thing. And we're going to see it at some point. And it's going to be terrible. In the good way. Right? It's going to be terrifying. And terrifyingly good. It's going to be terrifying to see, to witness that. But as long as we are on the winning side, we can have peace. Right? And so, like, that should be our mission, is to tell people, like, this is what could happen to you. This is what will happen one way or another. Do you want to be on the eaten by birds, consumed by fire side? Or do you want to be on the host of heaven, watch Jesus do his thing, party forever?
I'll be on the watch party.
I want to watch. I want to be a spectator and witness what happens. But at the same time, I kind of want to close my eyes and skip to the good part at the end. You know?
Fast forward.
But that's not how it works. You got to get through the bad to get to the good. Okay. And then the section closes with one more paragraph saying that the Lord will restore Israel. Right? Once the enemies are defeated, Yahweh will restore his people and they will prosper unopposed. If you flip back to Revelation, we're not going to read it, you don't have to flip. But after all the enemies have been defeated, there's final judgment. Enemies have been taken care of once and for all. Then there's a new Jerusalem, a new heaven, a new earth, and you'll read about that this week in Ezekiel.
Don't tell me.
Like, it starts with the new temple, and it ends with the new city that has a beautiful name, and that's how the book ends. So, once again, I encourage you to read this week, even if it's just the highlights, even if you only read the, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, the last 16 words of the book. Okay? Even if all you read is the last sentence of the book of Ezekiel, it is worth it. Okay? Because that is where I think you should read the rest of it leading up to it, because it builds, and then there's a very satisfying conclusion. But if all you read is the satisfying conclusion, it's where the name of this future restored city is revealed. And the rest of the chapters leading up to that tell you about this city and how beautiful it is and all of the amazing, wonderful things. There's a river of life coming out of the temple. And then there's like a garden in what used to be the desert, very much Garden of Eden language being restored. Also, if you read Revelation 21 and 22, very much the same thing. And then in Revelation, we're told that city is called New Jerusalem. I like Ezekiel's name for it better. You have to read that and figure out. Okay. It gives me shivers every time I say it. Okay. And it definitely fulfills that bottom question. How does it move toward God dwelling with his people? Okay. But you have to wait until next week to figure that out. Or go home and read it as soon as you leave today. You can totally do that.
Or read it during the business meeting.
Or,
Dear Lord, thank you so much for the hope that we have in you. The hope of restoration, of all of the enemies being defeated, and that we can live with you forever unopposed in a city with a wonderful, beautiful name. Thank you that you have power over death, you have power over life, you have power over the nations, that you are Yahweh, and that you desire for us to be your people and for you to be our God. I pray that we would live every day pushing towards that ultimate reality and that ultimate outcome of being with you forever and ever and ever. Amen.